Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alain Fusion Clapham. I am your host for this event. This is an inclusive event courtesy of the Welcome Collection, and we want to make sure that everybody feels involved and included in the session. So I'm going to start with my visual descriptor. My name, as I said, is Alain. I'm a transformative storyteller, founder of BMT Stories. My pronouns are he, him. I would describe myself as a black male. My roots are Afro-Filipino. My hair is braided. I'm wearing a grey top with some coloured spots on it. And I'm currently broadcasting from my living room with some books in the background. All of our guests will be introducing themselves in the same way. And I just want to make sure you feel comfortable and you are welcomed, because this is the Welcome Collection. For those of you who have no background on particular in the Welcome Collection, they are a free museum and library located in London. And their main interest is exploring health, being human, and making connections across science, medicine, life, and the arts. The building is currently closed, but that can't stop us. We are connected digitally, so we're actually worldwide right now. And this is one of our great sessions, which is exploring young people's experiences. And in particular, we're talking about young people on education and what they learned during lockdown. It's part of a session which we're doing, which is about being young now. We had our very first session in January. We dived deep into the world of well-being with some great raw leaders and creatives who are down with the Welcome Collection. And this group of young people we're going to introduce are of a similar caliber. We're very interested in their journeys. The themes we're going to explore today are fundamentally around learning loss, perhaps the idea of young people being blamed in the early stages for potentially being spreaders of the virus, social isolation, notions of tech poverty. They'll be telling us about the exam pressures, COVID health restrictions, and much more throughout the conversation. So without further ado, I want to give you some structure, let you know exactly how you're going to be involved in this session, because we need to make sure it is interactive. So firstly, today's schedule will involve this session being recorded. So if any of your friends, colleagues, or any other young people want to be part of this, they can get involved in the recording when it gets put onto the YouTube platform for Welcome Collection. But for now, all of the attendees in the audience will have their mics off and their cameras off as well, so you can hear the sound clearly here. Okay. As well as that, as an inclusive session, we'll be making sure that we have live speech, which will enable people to connect with this session. That's courtesy of VoiceBox. That'll be down below on the screen. So if you want that turned on with caption links, all you have to do is just tap on the tab on the browser, and you should be able to open up a separate browser to just give you information visually on the screen as well. The session will last for an hour and 15 minutes approximately. And we're going to open our session in a very creative way. We have a young activist and a poet who will be performing a commissioned piece. It's a recorded piece, which will set the tone for the session. Will then lead into a conversation, which will be divided into 3 segments. And each part of those conversations will give you a chance to get involved, get your statements across, ask some questions. You can do that via Slido. And there's a hashtag for that, which I'll give you, which is hashtag 19377 on Slido. So you want to ask any questions, use that. If you want to get involved on YouTube, you have to be logged in. So if you haven't done that, log in now, ask your questions. I'm going to try and be like a DJ. I'm going to be here talking. I'm going to be looking down at some of the comments so I can share your voice in this conversation. But if you don't get heard on the screen, still talk to the people in the chat, because this is a community talking in several different ways, all at the same time, all about education. Okay. I also want to make sure that it's a safe space, because this is a youth-led conversation. We need to make sure that everybody feels comfortable to express their ideas and their voices. So this is a positive experience. We want to make sure that you take responsibility for your conduct and your behavior. What does that mean? It means that there is no offensive language allowed throughout this session, and anything of that nature will not be tolerated. We're talking about any language which is referred to as being racist, ableist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, abusive, or religiously or culturally offensive. You will receive a warning, and if you don't actually honor that warning, you may be removed from the session for the well-being of everyone participating. As we know, the pandemic's been a year in. It's a very sensitive subject. So we'll be sharing lots of experiences, but we want to make sure that people feel safe and comfortable. So when we talk, we're going to be mindful of your experiences, and we hope you'll do the same in the chat as well. As I mentioned, there's opportunities to talk on Slido, and make sure, again, whatever you do, you contribute to a positive experience that we'll be sharing online. It's not just me here. It's not just the young people. We have the Welcome Collection family. They're going to say hello in the chat. So we have our moderators. They're here to support you. Anything you're struggling with on the platform, any support that you need, just reach out. They will help you with whatever you need to do today. Okay? So without further ado, I want to launch into this session because time runs and passes and we have so much to cover. So I'm going to step aside, clear the square, introduce our very first piece. It's going to set out the landscape for this conversation about education. So without further ado, we'll introduce Christina Denny's poem. Enjoy, and we'll come back and begin the conversation.
This isn't like all the movies. We're not wild and free. I sit and stare at my screen all day. These four walls are my reality. That's the worst part of it all, I think. Not knowing what's to be. Watching time slip away from us as we're riddled with anxiety. Because it's not just about the grades. It's also society, being exposed to all this pain and injustice and having to fight for some basic humanity. I don't know how to focus. I don't know what's the priority. Because living and learning from home is hard, especially when in poverty. Before I was on it too much, but now there's too little technology. And I'm tired of 2-hour calls on a poor network quality. They expect me to be all caught up, but I'm not a child prodigy. It's impossible to be on top of things when I'm on such low functionality. I know it's draining and a lot of complaining, and I've tried to fix this mentality. It's just difficult when this life, this dull life, has become a reality. We're going back to school now with no social battery. I've almost forgotten how to socialise, that I even had a personality. My youth isn't like what you see in the movies. We're not wild and free. Gen Zs are fighters and survivors. For that, we have gained notoriety. Our futures hang in the balance with climate, school, and inequality, but yet we remain calm and compliant, doing assignments and lingering unease.
Okay, we're going to give you a moment just so that we can get the screens back. I just want to click my fingers. That's what we do in the spoken word circles. If you're feeling that, let us know. It's a specially commissioned piece on behalf of the Welcome Collection. And I want to introduce the author of that piece. And if she's ready to jump in, as we do the visual descriptors. So we'll just begin just very quickly with just Christina introducing herself. And then we'll introduce everybody else who will be on the panel. And then we really want to have a quick discussion on the inspiration behind the piece. So Christina.
Hi, everyone. As Elaine said, I'm Christina. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a Black woman of Ethiopian heritage. I'm currently in my room. I've got a couple posters behind me. I'm in year 12 and 17 years old. And my favourite subject is history.
Cool.
I'm Shifa. My pronouns are she/her. I'm British Pakistani, that's my ethnicity. And behind me, I've got some artwork that I've done because that's my favourite subject. And I'm in year 11.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fawaz. My pronouns are he, him. I am a South Asian male, originating in Pakistan. I've got a plain background behind me, wearing a white top. If you check just in the corner, you can see a van, my bad. And yeah, I'm in first year university study, and my favorite subject is geography.
Hi everyone, my name's Mahi. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a South Asian male and I'm in my room in Northwest London. I'm in year 13 and my favourite subject is art.
Hi, my name is Famida. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a South Asian hijabi who loves watching K-dramas. I could binge watch them all the time. And I'm in year 13 and my favourite subject is graphics.
Hi everyone, I'm Abby. My pronouns are she, her. I'm from Jamaica and Syria, but like British. I'm in my brother's room actually because his room's got the best Wi-Fi, and yeah, my favorite subject is law. So yeah. And I'm currently in year 12, sorry.
Brilliant. All of you, welcome to the square. We're going to have a great conversation. I just want to just jump into the interactive chat. A few great comments. Katie got the goosebumps of Christina's poem. Summer shouting out man like, let me see, was it? Yeah, man like Mahi. So yeah, unknowns in here, bro. We also have some great comments. Salma's just saying she's finished praying and it's perfect timing for her to join into this conversation. So let's wheel back to the poem. Some really great lines in there to set the scene. I really liked the line about living and learning being hard from home, and this notion of life not being like the movies, you know, this kind of rite of passage that we've seen within movies for decades. So can we just begin, perhaps, Christina, with how you pieced the poem together and perhaps how the living and the learning at home has changed since the beginning of lockdown to the point we are now?
Yeah, obviously there was a lot to talk about, and it was kind of difficult for me to think how to start. And I thought, you know, when I was younger, when I was like 12, 13, how did I imagine my life would be like at the age I am now? And I think that's where I started, because I always saw, you know, those like teenage kind of like coming of age movies and thought they would be like that. But no, instead I've been in lockdown for a year. I'm utterly drained. I'm learning from home, which no one ever expected it a year ago. So yeah, that's how it kind of came about. And I guess I was just pouring all the emotion of exhaustion into it. Because I'm pretty sure, you know, we all feel exhausted at this point, and the uncertainty is just tiring. So yeah, I hope the poem reflected that.
Absolutely. I thought it was fascinating, this idea of a fiction. Like, you know, a lot of us have seen like dystopian stories like 1984 and just lots of things on channels about pandemics and zombies and stuff, and we never thought we'd be living in some kind of strange narrative in these times. So I definitely think you touched on some really powerful points. I know Flowers is a huge fan of spoken word. Do you want to jump in and say anything about the piece, Flowers?
I mean, I feel like as a lover of poetry as well as a poet myself, you know, you can really tell when it's coming from a genuine place, and I don't think there's any poetry that doesn't come from a genuine place. But there's you can feel that passion and realness in the piece, and I feel like that really came through with the piece. And I'm definitely gonna have to listen to it again to catch all the little beautiful gems she put in there. But well done, Christine. That was really nice to listen to. You did amazing.
You're in luck, because that piece will be on the Welcome Collection platform as well as Abby's piece, which you will hear later on, both commissioned for this particular project. So you're all here, and it's been a mission to get you here, because if you're not studying, you have family obligations, you have some semblance left of a social life in lockdown, and there are very few hours in a day. So I'm wondering what inspired you to make the time to lead on a conversation about education in lockdown, and that's just open to all of you. What inspired you to be here?
I think since we've all been in the same situation, we can all relate. So I think amongst our friends, we've all obviously had the same experience. So speaking with our friends, we all know what went down. So it's just nice to have a conversation where we're literally all on the same page.
Also to like acknowledge other people's problems, like problems that we didn't have, different people's experiences, because yeah.
Also, I feel like this is a platform where we can all come on and actually speak out, because if we were to go on, let's say Twitter, I feel like a lot of the youth are quite very much muted on there, whereas here we can speak freely and then people can understand our views. So yeah, this is what I liked about this.
100%. That's wonderful. Any other comments quickly? Because that excites us, because it is about us stepping aside and carving out a space for leadership, so we can hear your voices, which is absent quite often from the media.
I can't lie, for me, that took the words right out of my mouth. Just to be listened and to be heard, I feel like is very important for the youth. So we appreciate this, and so that's why we jumped at it.
Brilliant. Okay, so we're divided into 3 segments. The first one is called First Period, Lost Work, Reflections on a Year That Disappeared. So my question to you is really, in this period of dramatic change, what have been the biggest challenges that you've faced individually? And perhaps you can tell us what aspect of your learner journey you feel that you've missed out the most. So I'm going to go probably to Mahi, because I know you're in sixth form, and there was just this notion of a rite of passage, which we all, growing up, sixth form was like the year of change. So yeah, talk to us.
Obviously, after secondary school, you go into sixth form, and sixth form is kind of like the gateway to adulthood, because you go to university, you turn 18, you do have all these rites of passages that help you build up. So being in lockdown, there was none of that. So I think it's been quite difficult then me kind of adjusting to it on my own and then working on it by myself and preparing myself for university next year. Whereas if everything was normal, we would have had events, information speakers like guiding us there. But unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Okay. Anyone else kind of resonate with that as well? Because each part of your learner journey is unique in its own right. But does anyone else feel they missed out on something quite crucial because they couldn't gather with their student friends?
Yeah. Sorry. So we go.
You go first, it's fine.
Okay. Well, I think it's like the fact that I'm in year 12. It's like you've missed a lot, and it's not like the superficial stuff. It's like actually building up to your GCSEs and actually like putting in mad hours or like no sleep at all really, and revising and being able to sit in the exam hall and sit the exams, even though like mocks and all of that was already stressed as we know. But I think it was just like the whole adrenaline, like the pump of it and how it would feel. I missed that, and it's like, okay, well, I can't relate to like the year 13s, and I'm not really sure if the year 11s will be able to understand it too. But I think it's just like something that we've all gone through, and it was really shocking because we wasn't expecting it. Not one bit, to be fair.
Yeah. So for you, it was the leavers do and the prom as well. I mean, I don't want to rub it in, but I just feel it's just so important to mark the fact that, I don't know if you have any younger, older brothers and sisters, perhaps, or just people in your family that would have told you what to have expected and what to look out for during that time because they went through it.
Yeah, like my sister, she warned me a lot about like what prom would be like, what kind of dress I should wear, like like the it's the build up, and I don't know if it's like a girl's thing, but like when you pick a nice dress and then you need to match your hair and the shoes and like the little bag. Yeah, we had a lot of conversations about that, and my mum as well. But because it didn't happen, it was kind of like, oh well, we might have to be online this year, and then we'll go again next year. But I don't even know if we can go again this year anyway. So. Yeah.
In our school, like we've sort of been promised that we'll have prom, and it's kind of a bit like I'm kind of anxious about us like being so hopeful about it and building our hopes up, and then we end up not having a prom. And like you said, like I've already like started picking what dress I wanted and like thinking about everything. And like if we've been like promised it, and then when it comes to the time and they say that we can't have it, then it will be a bit like disappointing. So yeah.
Yeah, we had our kind of first taste of that over Christmas, didn't we? When we got the thumbs up, then the thumbs down. So it's like managing expectations in an uncertain time, for sure. But hold on to the dresses, yeah. Just keep the outfits. We're going to figure it out. Famida, you were going to chime in with one of your points as well.
What I'm going to talk about isn't as fun as prom, but we kind of missed out, like as a year 13 student, moving in year 12, we were supposed to do like work experience and all of that stuff, which is supposed to boost our personal statements, which is for uni. And the fact that we couldn't have that sort of experience, go out into the work field, and see how the work life is about, because as Mahi mentioned before, this is like the gateway between childhood essentially and adulthood. So yeah, it was just a bit like we were robbed of our opportunities, which we would only get from school, because some of us have backgrounds where we don't have parents who like can connect us with other like internship places. You know, this was our only opportunity, and we kind of robbed off that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of just look at that particular point, because it's crucial. You know, we're looking at equality in terms of school being a place where all can access opportunities. How have your teachers and the schools reacted in this time where they're trying to figure things out? Were they able to create any online experiences or make any kind of promises or suggestions of what could work in the future?
I think
I got for me to just to wrap up on that point, but I definitely want to hear from Christina as well. Yeah. Okay.
In my school, they sort of set up online work experience, but it was just like a week to week thing. But it's just, I don't know, like experiencing it on the field is definitely much more different from online, because I feel like with online they had like set tasks, which was kind of like a workshop like environment. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear it's something like the worst version of VR, isn't it? You know, instead, all the things you want to do is experience things in the physical space, getting on the train to a station you've never been to, being greeted at reception, and instead you're just looking through the same laptop, thinking you're having a new experience. So it definitely is a surreal time to try and learn and be in the workspace. Christina.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. Like when the schemes were put up online, it was difficult because we're already staring at our laptops like 6 hours a day, and no one wants to do it for longer. And just I'm on the prefect board at my school, so I had to organise some of those events, and it was really difficult to get young people to engage. I wouldn't have engaged if I wasn't on the team, because no one wants to sit for even longer when really and truly we should be, outside and enjoying life.
100%. Okay, I'm gonna just grab a point. I think Fawaz wants to jump in as well. I'm gonna take a point from you, then I'm gonna grab something from the interactive chat as well. Yeah.
So I was just gonna say, I thought like what you talked about, going to the train stations you've never been to, for example, like that point there really resonates with me, and it's these little interactions that we took for granted, like going to Starbucks to get coffee before your work, even if you are rushed, even if you were stressed, these little interactions that constitute to our social well-being, and just that social interaction, and keeps us healthy. And I feel like of course, because of lockdown, we have just been completely robbed of that, and it's those small things as well as the big things like prom and exams and etc., that really do impact us in different ways. It's the small and the big things.
I think it's a beautiful point, because we take these things for granted. We have done, for better or for worse. It's an aspect of human nature. But when we came out of lockdown and you had to find your way back to college or school, I was wondering, were you different? Like when you had the interaction at the coffee shop, when you got on the bus, did you kind of act out those differences that you're experiencing internally?
Definitely. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I can't lie. I feel like, I don't know. I've started romanticizing my life, and what I mean by that is I've come to this idea that life is short basically, and this year's been a madness. It's been really difficult. It's only been a year, but when I say romanticizing my life, I mean really stretching out them little moments of appreciation, really immersing myself into the moment and enjoying 3 seconds of eye contact with this person for whatever reason, even a bus driver, not feeling anything weird, but these little things, I've completely, I feel like I've to an extent reinvented myself. I don't want to say that sounds too much, but
I don't think it does. We've had to reinvent ourselves in very formal ways, 2 meters apart, I've never been used to buses that look empty that are full. So we've had to, in a very mechanical way, reinvent ourselves. And I don't see why we can't emotionally reinvent ourselves to be more grateful as a general practice. I think that's a very strong thing to say.
Fair enough.
Shifa, you had something you wanted to add in as well.
Yeah, I agree, because when I went to school, the atmosphere totally changed. Like, it was, I remember actually when we left school just before, like, I mean, during like COVID, and everybody was like really down and the mood was like really just depressing. But then when we came back, because everyone hadn't seen each other for such a long time, I think we all realized how much like we missed each other and like appreciated company and like being around people. So yeah.
I'm wondering, like, how abrupt was the exit? Because there was so much back and forth about whether, pubs should close, restaurants and schools. I was just wondering, on the ground, like, was it one day you're in school and then literally the next day you're kind of hurriedly saying kind of like impermanent goodbyes?
I can't explain how brief it was. Oh my gosh. It was literally, random Friday. I don't even know if it was on a Friday, but on a random day in March, we just stopped. And there was no kind of celebration. The head of year just made a quick speech like, oh yeah, I'll email you, bye. And then, yeah, that's what it was. And the whole 5 years leading up to, that year 11 summer, that GCSE exam was just gone. And we were all startled, like we didn't know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Someone else want to jump in on that one as well? Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you want to go first?
Okay. I don't know. It was a bit of a weird one for me, to be honest, because it was like my last year in school. Like the week before, I feel like I was like not really serious in my English classes, so that was just like minor. And then we come to the next week, and I think it was Wednesday. We was all like talking in the canteen saying, oh, apparently schools are going to get closed. We have to wait till like 5 p.m. for Boris to announce whether we are or not. 5 p.m. comes, and then I get all these messages saying, oh, well, looks like I won't be doing my GCSEs. I'm not in education anymore. Like those little jokes. But then when Friday came, because we broke up on a Friday and some people broke up on Thursdays, Friday came and we was all like signing our shirts. We was trying to make it like memorable. Like any regular leavers before the leavers party itself, you sign your shirts, sign a little book or whatever, just to remember the little things. Like you was with these people for 5 years and you're not going to see them again. And then we was all like handed like revision packs that was worth 2 weeks. We finished it in a week because we was all told we'll be back in like April kind of time. And then we had like tests that we had to submit. And when it came to us submitting them, we was like, okay, but how am I going to submit a test if it's from an email? And our teachers wouldn't respond. We didn't hear a single word. As soon as we left that gate, they shut the gate. They said, all right, cool. It's nice seeing you guys. See you soon. And we never heard from them again until we had to collect our GCSEs, the grades. And then, half of the teachers weren't even there because all the teachers like left the school, like actually handed in their notice and left the school. So we didn't even get a proper goodbye or get to have that one last conversation to remember everything that you've been through in the past 5 years. And to this day, I've never really heard anything since. So, yeah.
Appreciate that. I mean, just speaking on behalf of the teaching community, I spent 10 years on that front line. It's an earthquake that affects everybody. And I think, our responsibility has always been to provide a safe space for lifelong learning. And, we're going to talk more about that, that the inability to do that in these conditions feels like a shortcoming for young people. But please believe me, like, I know many teachers have really worked double shifts to try and make up for the loss that you've experienced as well. So we're going to dive a bit deeper because I think this human experience has caused us to look at each other differently. And I'll be interested to talk a bit more later on about how you see the relationship between the teacher and the student as well. So I'm going to go into the chat real quick. So we've got Katie's talking about, she's with us on the rite of passage. She missed her graduation and her degree show. So our heart goes out to all of you, and everything feels like it's being postponed. Salma saying not quite there yet, but missing the experience of the first year of uni. And Dawn saying, what? The teachers left? So I don't know. That's a soap opera we're going to have to conclude on another episode of the Welcome Collection. But yeah, I'm sure the pressures have been immense for all teachers and people on the front line. We're going to move the conversation forward. We're going to go to what we call second period. This is talking about online versus on-site, keeping score of the pluses and minuses. They say, change in life is inevitable. There'll be some losses and some gains as well. So I was wondering if we could just open the conversation on a positive note. And can we hear something that was a plus because you were no longer at school and learning remotely?
Didn't have to wake up at 6 a.m.
Okay. Okay, cool. Play this.
I was going to say the same thing. I feel like for a lot of people, like no exams was a big yes, and for a lot of us it was a big it was a big yes. We'll focus on that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And sorry. For me, basically, in school we're not allowed like our coats on, but I was allowed to have my blanket on at home, and I just I was so cozy, and I didn't have to get up from my bed. So.
You're leading me down an interesting path. I'm getting a sense of lions and blankets. I mean, did you find that you didn't have the edge that dressing up, going out, being amongst a learning group because the pandemic was affecting your learning? Because it's nice to be cozy, but I, as a professional, had to get out of my house as a freelancer and go to coffee shops to give me that sense of being in the world. So I was wondering how you coped being in your home environments.
It was difficult to get used to. It definitely was. It's like, because being at home, your parents see you in the four walls as their child, and so having as an individual having that balance of student versus I'm your child it causes a mix of it's a bit confusing, especially when the parent I know for some of us in terms of across the nation it was difficult because that's what the parents would see the child as, and so they'd be asking them to do jobs and this and that while they're in lectures, and I don't know, I can't say I blame the parents, but at the same time there's some level of accountability there, but that definitely affected being able to pay attention to.
Yeah, you raised a powerful point, and I want us to kind of just unpack that a little bit. I know as a teacher I thought the weirdest day of the year was parents' evening, because I had a concept of who you were as a learner, and that was it. And your parents guardians had a concept of who you were as their child, and that was it. And I just looked at the students sometimes, they were like, these two worlds are so different. And I was just wondering what it's like to show your parents and guardians your learner face and say, this is what I'm like at school. I need to be like this to learn. Was that a particular story or situation that any of you lot faced?
Mahi, I'll go after you.
I think at the start with the very first lockdown, since everything wasn't really online or effectively organized, it wasn't really very interactive. So our parents didn't really get to fully appreciate what we were doing. So they just thought we woke up, did a bit of work, submitted it, and that was it. And then as the lockdowns went on and it was more interactive, our parents were I think they fully what we were doing, the difficulty, how much work we had to do, the amount of coursework, our routines, because as the lockdown went on and as everyone got more clued up on how Teams worked or Zoom or whatever platform schools used, it showed how intense and how serious everything was getting. So I think that was a big eye-opener to parents.
Okay, I'm going to chalk that up as a win. I feel like you might have earned the respect of your parents, that your learner journey is quite an immense experience, and they perhaps maybe didn't factor that in when you left the door. So I think that's a powerful revelation. Okay, Christina.
For me, it was a bit weird because I'm an activist as well. So I would have a ton of meetings after school. So it would just be from 8 a.m. till maybe 5, 6, sometimes 7. I'm on my laptop, just on meetings. And it was odd because I'm literally in the same house as my family, and yet I don't speak to them during the day. And I think, as you said, Fusion, they realized how kind of difficult it is. And I kind of learned to value, because I was in this cycle of just doing the same thing every single day, and it was so difficult to get out of. But then I kind of realized that, oh my gosh, like I literally don't speak to my family, and they're in the same house as me. So yeah, for me, I just really appreciate like the fact that I'm able to be so close to my siblings and my parents, and it's something that I definitely took for granted.
I mean, it's an interesting challenge because you're physically close, but that attention, you know, there have been studies that when people are on their phone, their hearing changes and they're less engaged. So in a sense, your parents see more of you, but they see less of you in some way. Now, I was wondering, specifically, Christina, you were talking in a previous conversation about the family dynamic of wanting to be there to help your siblings through this lockdown experience, but at the same time meet your targets, at the same time have your own space as well. So how did you find it navigating that?
Yeah, so during the school day, obviously I have two younger siblings that they have the same school day as me. So when they need help, my parents don't have a university degree, they come to me. And that's something that was great for me to see how, you know, like they were learning and what they were learning about. And I was amazed to actually like see how my brother thought and how my sister, like, you know, actually did her work, because I never saw that before because we were always at school at different times. But it was difficult because I then couldn't concentrate, and it kind of took a toll on my learning. But yeah, it's difficult to complain about because I'm grateful for the eye-opening experience it was. But then again, it did really disturb my learning.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're all trying. It's like spreading the load, isn't it? Like there's peer learning. You can help share what you've learned to your siblings, but at the same time, you've got to make the time up. And then there's all the other commitments as well. I think that's something that Abby resonates with as well, because you're a bit of a prolific one. You know, you've got, you know, if you're not doing an advert for Co-op or you're dropping like YouTube videos, you've got Football Beyond Borders as well, which is like your evening gig. So how's it been just like managing all of that from, you know, from your home HQ?
It really is. Like the downstairs room that I'd usually be in is like the office space and the music studio all at the same time. So half of it is dedicated to me, my drums and my piano, and then the other half is for like my dad. I feel like it was really hard, especially this year because we actually had online school. I say that because like my classes would be like my afternoon classes would be from like 2 to 4. My brother would finish at like 3, so I'd have to keep it on because his school's like only down the road. I have to keep my online class on and then run to go get him to come back to finish the class, so that the teachers wouldn't really suspect anything. Because me saying like I need to go get my brother, that's not really a good enough excuse, and it would be unauthorized, I guess. So besides that, if I wasn't able to get him, I would be doing many different things at the same time. So like you said, with FBB, I was always in meetings with them, because if it's not something to do with the girls forum, then it's to do with the boys that I mentor, or it's to do with work, like my actual, like the extra side of my job, which is like comms team and editing and all of that. So it was all of these different roles that was just handed to me because we was in lockdown and there wasn't really much to do. In terms of Co-op, I didn't do anything else since, and it's like that kind of happened, and then I started picking up some other stuff. So as you know, in terms of Black Wall Street, so I've been working close with them since last September, and I think that's why I made the connection with you and why I'm here today. And I made a connection with someone else, which got me the gig with Co-op. So it's all about making connections during lockdown as well, because I think the whole of lockdown got me to where I am now. Because before I was just a regular year 11 student, but as soon as I stepped into lockdown, I became a poet, I became a film writer, and I became someone who rode a bike for extra reasons other than like leisure time. And it was like, okay, well, I'm kind of doing something that I love anyways, and I'm getting recognized for doing it as well. So it's like, why not? It's like, it kind of goes hand in hand, because if lockdown didn't happen, I don't know if I would be where I am now in terms of like college, friendships, or like work, business, all of that. Like, it all intertwined into one. So yeah, in terms of like after parties of work and that, I am very overloaded. And I'm trying to like make things better and plan it out correctly, but it's just like really stressful and hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. We fully relate. You're well on your way in your professional career as well. So it's balance. Christina.
I just wanted to pick up on a point that Abby made about connections and relate it to what Famida was saying earlier about, you know, not being from a background in which you have the privilege to, you know, get those connections from your parents. I'm in the same boat. Everything that I've done has been me and like not handouts from my parents or anyone else. And one thing that I think Abby highlighted is the fact that lockdown has been a massive opportunity in terms of, you know, the internet is our greatest asset, and we were actually like kind of able to use it in our education, which is something really new. Like at my school, we still aren't able to, you know, use phones, and we only started using laptops in sixth form. So these kinds of things, like I managed to reach out to so many people and actually make change online. And, you know, even with the BLM protests and the climate emergency and stuff, so much stuff was shared and content made because we were all at home and young people were putting their creativity out. And that in itself brings, you know, connections, and it's real, like there were real opportunities and real kind of threats and difficulties, but yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just going to do it like a proud teacher and just call it out. I know you're on the BBC Top 100 Women's Power List, Christina, and much in part because of the work you did to begin the free meals in schools campaign, which Marcus Rashford pushed over the line. So I'm just wondering how this period of lockdown perhaps helped you get that message across, because, you know, we all see the headlines of a celebrity doing great work as an influencer, but it began with groundwork, community activism, and a petition that you started.
Yeah, so I guess the whole thing began because it was the 8th week of lockdown and the government had just said that they were taking away provisions over the half term. And I was mad, like I was angry because I've been on free school meals before. So many of my friends, so many people at school were on free school meals or are on free school meals. And for you to take away such an essential thing at a time where, you know, the budget is tight, like families are at home having to provide for their kids 24/7. Like I thought it was such an absurd thing. That's what pushed me over the edge to actually do something and start the petition. And the support that it got showed that, you know, isolation isn't a barrier because we're still connected. And, you know, the fact that it reached 500,000 signatures, like that's insane. Like nobody knew me. Do you know what I mean? Nobody knew me. But it's the fact that I stood up as a young person and said I was on free school meals and I'm gonna stand for this. And I think that's such an important thing as young people. Like all the young people here are standing up and speaking out, and that's something that I think lockdown has really helped with.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. It's crucial. I want to kind of just shift the axis slightly and talk about a phrase which came to the fore during the pandemic about tech poverty. And I just thought it was an interesting question because most households wouldn't have a laptop per person. Normally you would have one or two devices which were shared. But I think education at home created a unique situation where it almost felt like everybody needed a device. So I was wondering what it was like for some of you in this conversation in terms of being able to have access to learning through technology.
I think initially it was quite of a juggle, because if you have siblings like I do, and there's only a certain number of laptops in the house, there's only so much you could do. So for a while, I guess it was a bit of, okay, you use the laptop then, I don't need it, and then we will share it. And then eventually, I think the schools started to come around and realize this. So they'd set lessons that didn't necessarily need you to be live, or they'd be like, come into school, you can work in school on a laptop in a classroom somewhere. And recently, my school, my sixth form anyway, started giving out laptops over the most recent lockdown, so we could do our lessons and not miss out on anything. So I think it was a bit slow to start with in terms of this tech poverty, but then as people became more aware of this issue, my school at least definitely made way for provisions to like try help and solve the problem.
Brilliant. Okay. I think for me, there might have, I don't know if you want to chime in as well.
Yeah, for me personally, I didn't have access to a laptop. I would do it all on my phone, but my school sort of like, they sorted it out really quickly in giving me a laptop. And I know that a lot of students don't have access to Wi-Fi as well. So I think the government gave out free Wi-Fi for them. So I think that was quite like helpful in a sense, in like making people think, oh, I'm not missing out on this, rather than thinking, oh, I don't have this facility, so I'm going to fall behind. Mentality. Yeah.
Absolutely. Brilliant. And there was an interesting thing that came up as we kind of had an exploratory conversation about lockdown and learning. And it was something which I think was quite groundbreaking. The idea of not tech poverty, but space poverty. You know, just this idea that it's a computer, but it's in a real place. It's a place where mum's cooking or dad's cooking, where, you know, your brother's taking some time out playing a computer game. Someone else is running around. A child is crying because they're two. That's what they do. And you're there trying to learn. And I was wondering how that has shaped your learning experience. I saw vigorous nods from Abby, so she might have something to say, but you're all welcome. So I'll start with Abby.
Okay. So yeah, like I mentioned, I have the shared space downstairs, and like one lesson I could be talking through my mic and actually interacting, and then because my dad would have a meeting, I'd have to be like, okay, well, miss, I can't really use the mic now. I need to type it, and then because I'm typing, me typing is kind of holding her up, because then it kind of lags, and then she has to wait for the reply, and then it just got a bit long. So then at the beginning, I didn't have a laptop. I had a computer that we all shared in the house. Then my dad got a laptop. Because he had a laptop, I wanted to use a laptop and he could have the computer, but it was his laptop. So then I pushed to get my own laptop, and that's how I'm like talking to you guys, because I finally got my own, innit? And it was like so many years, and I'm finally getting a laptop. And I was able to go in different parts of the house if I needed to. And because my brother was at home for like the beginning of lockdown this year, he was doing his schooling from home, so anytime he didn't have a lesson and he knew I had a lesson, you know what what younger kids do, like when they find out you're on the phone, and why do they come in and make so much noise just so that the people on the phone can hear you? He does that every single lesson, right? And then he comes in, but because he knows the mic's not on, but like the camera's not even on either, he's coming in to make the most noise, and he brings in like the loudest toys as well, just to like prove a point. And then he will just stand there and look at me, and then walk out and slam the door afterwards. Like, no one invited you into the room. So at the end, I ended up coming into his room and locking the door, because like I said, he's got the best Wi-Fi in the house. And then because that wasn't good enough, and he found out this is where I was hiding, I ended up going to my dad's room. And then from there, I went back to my workspace downstairs. And yeah, that is how...
Abby, I think you have a unique set of problems. Well, thank you for letting us into your world, for sure. Okay.
My sister came in as well, and she was asking if she could measure me whilst I was having a lesson for her homework. So I was also stuck in that similar type of position where, well, my dad would also come in, and then he would attempt to close the door, but he wouldn't actually shut it, and it would just be like left a tiny bit open. But yeah, and I also want to say, in terms of like tech poverty and like space, I have like friends that I know that share like rooms with their siblings, and like during like pubescent age, I feel like that's really unhealthy and like toxic. And I've like, obviously myself, I'm really like thankful that I have like my own space and my own room, but like obviously people are in like small like claustrophobic spaces where they can't like have their own space to work and like be motivated, and it impacts their motivation a lot, like, and their production, I mean, sorry, their
Productivity.
yeah, productivity, yeah.
Amazing. I saw Fawaz nodding vigorously several times. Is there anything you wanna add to the mix?
I just relate to the thing of leaving the door open, but I don't know about you guys, but my door is, I don't know, I kind of feel like we have a ghost in our room. But basically, as soon as you walk in, if the door's open, it will close behind you. I swear, these ghosts be polite as all hell. But no, yeah, like this thing of being a student and being it goes back to our first point about how your parents, like I think Elaine, you said in a previous discussion, your parents probably don't see you between the hours of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday ever, unless you're sick. So now, like, bringing that into the home, it has its implications and affects us the way it has. But
absolutely, I feel, just building on, I think one of the points Christina mentioned about this this kind of midway point where we're learning through YouTube tutorials, we're learning through podcasts, we're learning informally in a very powerful way. We've got traditional education, and the two kind of crash together when your lectures taking place as a stream of audio. I was wondering if I was being one of the kind of more senior learners here, we had a little discussion about how hard it is to be lecture ready when you're not in the lecture hall.
You know what? It's like going from sixth form, which is less independent than college. I know I think some of us here are in college and some of us are in sixth form. I went to sixth form, and that's more like classroom lessons. College is where I feel like is a bigger step of independence. University, however, that's just plain and standard all university around. It's all on you. And so not having that big jump from sixth form to university, where it's all focused on you, and then having the extraness of COVID, the mental health implications that had, the lack of guidance. We were looking at the themes of the themes around this conversation, and one of those was future uncertainty. And I can say, like, personally, that like this whole online space has caused me to really think about the course I'm doing. But yeah, and even in previous discussions, we were talking about how lectures are treated as a podcast, because it's just, it's so easy to zone out, and I zone out a lot. It's really difficult having all that independence in university and zoning out. I can't tell you how much I have, when you try to focus on something and then that's your hyper focus is what makes you miss it. That happened to me for like hours on end sometimes. Like I don't know how, but I would be really trying to focus on a specific lecture, trying to grasp what the lecturer is saying, and it would just go by me. So yeah, it's been difficult. It's been difficult, and it's hard to differentiate, because usually we're using laptops for YouTube videos for fun that we want to engage in, that we want to look at. I don't know. My brain doesn't know the difference between a lecturer and a YouTube video. And so that level of importance is also out of balance, and so that also comes into it as well.
Brilliant. And you're not alone. There's a concept called like mirror neurons, and this idea that we can't, if you're watching a horror movie, you feel internally fear because you're watching that. And it's just this idea that you can't really distinguish in a video and somebody live streaming something, because it all comes at you in a very similar fashion. So yeah, these are things we're going to have to unpack as we go forward. So really powerful conversation. Any questions from the chat? Throw them in now. We're about to segue into our third segment. This is us talking about what it is to be young now. We're specifically looking at young people in education and what it is to learn during a lockdown. Lots of powerful points. And there's a really funny comment from Shazam Zoom, who's saying, I agree, to share a computer with 14 siblings is a bit brazy. So yeah, there are no easy answers to how we deal with the situation, which brings us nicely to the third period. I'm still going to wait on some questions, but again, if you do watch this after the broadcast, you can always let Welcome Collection know your thoughts and ideas. This is an ongoing conversation, but we're recording it live right now. So our third period is Future Lessons, Looking for the Light After Lockdown. And just in our creative fashion, we've commissioned our second piece. It's going to be by Abby, and she's going to give us a kind of springboard into our final part of the conversation. So, yeah, we're going to clear the space. Abby, the square's yours.
All right. This piece is called The New Normal. And it's like a conversation between Tech Abby and Real Abby. Hello? Are you near home yet? Yeah, just waiting for my bus. Did you go to college? Yeah, what's up? Nothing. I just underestimated the time spent at home. Guess I got used to these long days at home. It's funny you say that. Just the other day, I deeped it. Lockdown really had us feeling away. Literally, like back in the day, we took for granted our friendships. I missed you for a couple hours back when we had classes, and now I'm picturing us together. Been missing you from my lock screen. I hope this all surpasses. Remember our first day in college? Wasn't it online? Yeah, it was, offering virtual vibes and handshakes, color schemes and slideshows. Campus couldn't look any better. I almost forgot how to make my way to the building, but when I came back, it was more like a maze and Maze Runner itself. First month online, links became a personal invite, like an RSVP to my next lesson. I remember many used to attend, and then they all began to drop out, like the end of a 30-day free trial. I had to suck up my pride like a breath of fresh air, but they'd blame it on the Wi-Fi. True inconsistency proved to a nation that teachers are all still human. I used to think otherwise, but it was a cycle. Microsoft Meet, Zoom, Eat. Life really couldn't get any better. Facts, but deep it, the tech we had back then was the best thing ever, and suddenly it's no longer good enough. But we should use the fact that the updated tech brought us closer. True, it brought us closer, but it can get unhealthy. Sometimes I feel like I depend on it more than before. Lockdown really made things tough and stressed our loved ones so they couldn't stress anymore. What happened to us, man? Just last year, we was claiming this year, said it would be our time to blow and we'd encourage success. Now we're hiding behind masks, claiming the villain look like we've done something wrong. But in truth, we were hoping the system would get it right. We haven't been protected. Instead, we were neglected. These days, I feel like grades and careers are a distant memory. I simply step where the wind blows me. During lockdown, I'd sleep bare. I don't blame you. You couldn't go anywhere. Yeah, I need the key to open up this freedom. We will be free someday. Starting with these masks, because I can't breathe. Yeah, for real. Because in truth, what we need is to become friends with tech again. I want to dress up for once and do prom and leavers, even though I've already left. But also, we don't need handouts. We just need opportunities for them to invest in us and an opportunity to teach the teachers. We have become the masters, but it's okay for them to learn from us. Then maybe things could be different. Maybe things could be different. What if we could replace the old with the new and just walk with it? If they help us do all of that, all of the above and more, and understand that we are worth it, maybe we will get the grades they want us to get. And maybe, just maybe, we will be able to pursue greatness again. Yeah, for real. That was a deep call, man. You're telling me. I was only calling to check that you did reach. I'm due to hop on the bus, but I'll shout you later. All right, be safe.
Big respect, all the clicks, yeah? Brilliant. This is fantastic, This is how art can influence culture and society, and it's written in the cauldron of pressure, because you still got to go to the football work. You still got to fight for space. You still got to make sure your brother's not making a whole heap of noise when you're trying to pen a piece, and you still got to get the assignments in on time. So how did you navigate creating that piece, and did you really have a conversation with a friend about lockdown to make it?
Yeah. I'm just going to do a quick shout out to my friend Jada, because I know she's watching. Me and her, she's spamming it now. Me and her would always talk about like lockdown and stuff and how we really feel. We would talk about the fact, like I said, like college was like a maze because it's like literally maze runner because we couldn't remember what direction our class was in, but we knew like you go up the stairs, one's on that side, the other's on that side kind of thing. So it was kind of like trying to figure out and get back into the routine. But with this, I had it in my head. I was like, okay, well, I've got another week, so I'll be presenting next week. I remember saying this in the call with you, and I was like, oh, it's this week. Because I had so many other things that I needed to do from like work, and then I had like assignments and then like a film and all of that. So it was like mad overwhelming. But I think at the beginning, I was going to do like all my old spoken word pieces, and they were all in my bathroom because it had like the best lighting and, you know, like nice weekend. It's quiet. You can hear the birds chirping. And then it just didn't happen. And I remember I was on the phone to you and Anna, and I was saying, okay, well, I don't really know how to go about it because my bathroom, that's a bit too generic because I've done it before. And then we came up with the idea, okay, well, we could do a Skype call. And then I thought, all right, well, if I'm going to film it, I might as well do it as a FaceTime call because that's something that all of us did during lockdown. If it wasn't house party during the night, like all-nighters, and then you have your house party, it was like FaceTime because FaceTime audios are like longer than a regular call. And we'd all be on that until like God knows what time in the morning. And then you like get a couple of hours
Just
sleep.
checking, all of you that relate to this, yeah? Like the
I feel like, yeah.
house party sessions, all of that stuff. Abby, don't give too much away because I know you're actually, you know, slyly going to record the piece and submit that into the Welcome collection as an alternative take on the poem. But, you know, thank you for, you know, they say pressure creates coal and it creates diamonds. So, you know, you shone on that piece. We appreciate the effort you put in. Lots of smiles and knowing nods. So was anything that particularly resonated? The piece ultimately was about us trying to steer a direction towards the light. I was wondering if there's anything that particularly struck a chord with you.
For me, it was the way we use technology. You know, the fact that suddenly everything is, you know, not sufficient. I think that was such a key point to. I hadn't really made the connection, and I think moving forward, it's definitely important to remember that all these things like that we take for granted is so essential, and we depend on these things so much. But yeah, I loved it.
Brilliant. Resident poetry expert. We're going to come to you in a minute, Fawaz, but I think Shifa wants to chime in. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you mentioned about like applying for like colleges, I think you were and universities, etc. Like when I'm applying for colleges now, and I've already applied, but I also had to like just base my option and my choice on how the website looks, and as you like touch upon in your poem, like it's kind of like daunting to think about how we've just like picked a really big part and a big important part of our life just based off of a website and the colors and, you know, like what type of vibe we get from the website. So yeah.
Brilliant. I think you lot coined the phrase virtual vibes. You know, like you're trying to have a real experience, but you're forced to judge on virtual vibes, which, yeah, Mahi, I know that really was something that meant a lot to you as well.
Yeah, I guess harping back to a previous point that you made about on-site versus online, I guess like I think we all know being in person in a classroom with our friends is 100% different to being behind the screen and not really seeing your friend. Like in school, you can bust jokes, you can look at people, laugh, have fun, but online is just complete. You're just isolated. You're in your room, no one's around you. And I guess the virtual vibes just didn't bang as much as like, you know, being in school with your mates. So I think, and also going back to Abby's poem, I might have to listen to that again because there were so many bars, but the overall feeling got like appreciating the little moments. So going on into the future would be like when I'm with my friends in school, it's just like appreciating the atmosphere. I mean, I'm in this classroom right now, I'm learning, my teacher's there, she's teaching me, he's teaching me. I'm going to appreciate this because who knows, hopefully we don't, but if we was to go another lockdown, it would be poor. But yeah, it's definitely appreciating the moments that we definitely took for granted before.
Brilliant. Fawaz, care to add?
So I can't lie. There was one line from the poem that I was like going ballistic over, but I can't remember the line. So as Mahi said, I'm gonna have to re-listen to that. But the thing that Mahi touched upon about vibes you can't like create online. To an extent you can, but it's not just like he said. Look, you can look at someone and start creasing. There's not that interaction online, and the point about these small interactions linking back to I think the first point I made in this whole discussion about these small interactions going about your day, how we've overlooked them, and how I as an individual have started to romanticize life and whatnot, and how that even relates to the family, like that time away from your family, like we were talking about, the family see more of you but they have less of you. Does that make sense? And those moments away from your family would allow the things to stay in balance. The thing of family interaction versus, social interaction outside. But yeah, the vibes you can't create, and so I think that's so important.
Brilliant. So Abby, we definitely need that recording. Yeah, we're gonna come again with the special version of your piece. But yeah, well done. I got a very specific question for Mary Eldon, and that's gonna be for Shifa and anyone else who loves art. So the question was, how have you found it being an artist in lockdown, and how has it affected your creativity as a student?
Well, during the first lockdown, I actually really struggled. We had remote learning, like people have touched upon, where you just do your work without any online lessons. Personally, I found that like a lot harder, and specifically with art, I think I really struggled like with ideas, because like being an artist, like you get inspired by the things around you and your whole environment, and like not being able to go out and like meet new people, or like just come across like different things you don't normally see on a day-to-day basis. It's like, you're just like kind of robbed of like inspiration, and like art has to come with inspiration, and if you don't have it, then you're kind of stuck or like blocked. It's like when you're like a writer and you can't really think of anything. It's like the same thing. But I think in the second lockdown, so this lockdown, it was a lot easier for me. And I'm not really sure why that is, but I think I did occasionally like see my friend and like go like visit them, or like go on a walk when we were allowed to, and like even that bit of socialization, it like really helped me. And I think it's like a part of your mentality where you can't, like, if you're restricted from that, then you can't work properly, and it just changes your whole like motivation and your mindset. So yeah.
Super powerful point, and eloquently said as well. There is a misconception that this downtime is a perfect incubator for creativity, but creativity is the oxygen to art, isn't it? You need to be out in the world, engaging, having emotional experiences to create the stimuli to make anything artistic in many ways. So yeah, that's mirrored in the film community, music community, all of that. So yeah, beautiful point. A couple more things we're going to cover, and then anything else you want to throw into the mix, we're going to get there before the end of the bell. Yeah. So there's this notion of the student becoming the teacher. I used to have a teacher who had an overhead projector. I don't expect any of you to know what that is, but it was so old school. It was this arcane device. He knew how to work it, and most of us had no clue. And it feels like now it's this flip reality where I can imagine teachers are probably asking help from you on how to use the technology that they need to use to teach. So has anyone got any stories where perhaps they've become the teacher to their teachers in some way? But don't mention the name of the teacher, though. We don't want to embarrass them or shout out the schools. Yeah, keep it anonymous. Flowers.
It's a very small case, but I know that, so for the first half term of uni, I was going into university for about 6 or 8 weeks, and to get everything started, like every session we'd be wasting a good 5-10 minutes just with the simple things, like switching the output speaker to this speaker or microphone to this, And because I was in person and online learning, it was difficult to facilitate that. So sometimes you'd have a student on the laptop telling the teacher. So like, because the teacher would be sharing content, to then see the messages in the chat, they have to go out of the presentation onto Zoom, for example, and then check, so sort of simple things like that, really. That would, but it, like, I don't know if you remember this, Alain. You were a teacher, so you probably know this off the back of your hand. But then 5 minutes at the beginning of every lesson, they'll add up, and after the end of the year, you say you've lost so many hours. That was happening for the first 4 to 6 weeks in every lecture, every day. It adds up. So
yeah,
but obviously that can't be helped. So.
And yeah, just adding into that, there's something about flow. Teachers, athletes warm up before they run or perform, and teachers need to be grounded before they actually deliver to groups of people. It's quite intimidating and challenging. So when you're having a tech meltdown before a seminar or a lecture, you're not going to be performing to your optimum as well. So it's a really good point. You're not just losing the 5 minutes, you're losing a great teacher as well. Yeah.
I definitely I feel for my teachers, actually, especially I take humanities, so it's a very we have discussions about issues, and in the classroom, as you said, there's flow to it, but at home it was so difficult, and it kind of hurt to see some of my teachers struggling because they're so brilliant. Some of my teachers are absolutely amazing, and yet online all of that is lost. I feel bad because I can't concentrate to just listening to 2 hours of talking. They feel bad because they don't know how to operate the tech, and they can't send through the videos and the resources that they want because they don't know how to do it. And it's just I'm really glad we're back.
100%, and I think it's almost like the duck analogy, that you see teachers floating by doing their work, but underneath the feet are paddling furiously to make things happen. And I know one young person in my circle was explaining that they received a message from their tutor at midnight, saying that the lecture isn't the lecture anymore, something else is going to happen tomorrow. And I relate to that because, as a teacher, you're going to go to bed and your student's going to wake up in a mindset, and you're thinking, well, this is not the time I would ever really message, but you have to respond in this crisis. So do you all feel that your teachers have taken on a more human form as opposed to being Sir this or Mr. that or Miss that?
I personally think that with one of my teachers, actually, I properly realised that because they have kids and they've got their own families to attend to and provide for. They're put under a lot of pressure that people often don't see, and obviously it's hard for them too, as well as us. And it makes a big difference if we are thankful towards them about how they've put aside their time to help us instead of their own family.
Brilliant, really good point.
I think definitely I've been seeing my teachers a lot more as people, because as we know, exams have been cancelled and the government have completely washed their hands of the whole situation, saying it's teachers, they've got to decide exams, how to examine us, all this. So that's increased loads of stress for them, and I definitely feel for them because they're getting no guidance, because we saw the news is teachers decide everything. So, and there's no base standard, so it's just going from school to school. So I definitely feel for the teachers because we're constantly looking to them for answers, because we look up to them as figures in school, but they have no answers. So they're coming back to us, and there's constant back and forth of uncertainty, which I don't think helps anyone in any case.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of a more powerful point to bring us towards a conclusion. We know that even as we speak, policies are being explored. Policy makers, government officials, scientific advisors are all trying to shape our future, and specifically yours in the world of education. So I'm sure we can be hearing conversations about making up for lost learner time, formalizing policy in terms of how to be safe back in the school environment. I was just wondering, what are your priorities? As we go forward, what would you want perhaps policy makers, parents, teachers to know what matters to you to get you back on track for your learning? So take a moment to think about it, and just whoever wants to jump in, it could be our closing thoughts.
I think if the government just like established like a base, because from the get-go of this pandemic, there's always been this shuffling about of what to do, what not to do, and then just constant back and forth, and no one giving any clarity, which is, let's be honest, we can all agree is a bit of a shambles. But I think from now, if they could learn anything, it's just to have like a set, not guideline or criteria, but something like that, just so should anything like this happen again, which hopefully it doesn't, so people know what to refer to. Because otherwise it will just be a massive, what's the word, circus show again.
Brilliant. Yeah, and speaking in teacher language, I'm going to say show you're working out. Remember, you get extra marks, you actually show how you figured something out. Maybe if the policy advisors say this is why we did this, these are our thoughts, and it's more open source, then perhaps we can ensure that we can also get the working out and a more appropriate answer. It's powerful, very powerful. Okay, who is next? Yes, Christina.
For me, lockdown has been amazing in terms of understanding and empathy. I've been able to understand and empathize with loads of people that I didn't before. And same, like, you know, we've shared stories, we've even now, like, we're talking and discussing about loads of different issues that impact all of us. And I want people to maintain that, not just in education, but like in the wider world. And that I just don't want to go back from that. That's the one thing. Like the one good thing is that we've been able to kind of unite and scramble, you know, together and kind of make solutions. So yeah, just keep doing that, I guess.
Brilliant. I like that. Okay, for me, there.
Can you hear me? Sorry. Sorry, what was your question?
The question just really, you know, what your thoughts are about, you know, your voice. This has always been about the youth voices conversation, and we believe Welcome Collection needs to be amplified. So we just want to know what your thoughts are of what can make the learning experience better as we go past the first anniversary of the pandemic.
I think like with teachers and students kind of like preparing things together, I think instead of teachers coming up with one thing and then students would kind of like disagree with the way they want to teach. So if they want to like say, I'm going to teach you this way, students can then come and say, oh, but we think this way isn't going to work out. Because I know during lockdown we had online lessons where they put us into breakout rooms and no one really interacted in them, and our teachers thought like, oh yeah, this is so good, like they're going to interact with each other, but it never really happened. So like, you know, so I think like making an agreement between the student and the teacher would definitely help in like coming up with a better solution in how we would learn.
Ah, you bring me joy. I love that. I could be a fly on the wall in that teacher meeting. It's like, yeah, it's like a real breakout room. They'll go in a separate room. No, it's not. You're at the same terminal with the same people in a different square. You know, so we're all on a learning curve, but we could learn quicker by actually consulting young people who would set us straight on that question. So yeah, really good point. Fawaz.
Just to touch on a few different points. Before I forget, for me, this point of breakout rooms, like and I've seen a lot on like social media that, you know, the breakout rooms are just not really there for anything, and I feel like this is where the fact that I'm in university changes that, because we, like, as a student, I'm pursuing what I am passionate about. So these breakout rooms, I don't get this for the most part. I don't get the same experience as what I see in terms of like people will be talking and people will be, you know, spitting their passion into that breakout room, and, you know, we'll be having real in-depth discussions. But I completely empathize with, like, you know, I can imagine if I was in year 13, I would be in the same thing. And also, I can't remember what other point. Mahi's point of never mind. I can't remember. Never mind.
Okay, no worries.
But yeah,
cool point still. Okay, Shifa. Okay, if you can turn your mic on. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's gone off again.
Sorry. I was saying that just as young people, we could like learn to appreciate more the environment we have and like appreciate the people around us instead of just like kind of dismissing people and like, you know, like just not thinking about others, like being considerate. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We're just bringing it to a close. Abby, last words, please.
Could you repeat it? Because I had like different points, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's our kind of subtle manifesto for change. Everyone's shouting about what needs to happen next, and we really feel the voice of young people could really be included more. So any thoughts you might have, some of them were actually expressed in the poem. So anything in particular you thought we could implement as a way of improving learning?
I think maybe because like I remember in my area especially, we had like back in year 9 we had the option to do like young mayor, and if you got through then like you could become potentially the mayor or become like the young mayor cabinet. And even when I was a part of that, we was able to discuss things like this, like how can we make a change for young people in this area. And I think it would be cool if like we was able to do something like that, but for the nation, I guess. Maybe that's the stretch, but if we was able to do something like that where we can just sit and have young people who are currently going through what we are talking about, it would be really cool, because then we could like put points across and explain how we really feel. And I think it's hard for us as well, because in the news and media, it's older people talking about how we are feeling. They tell everybody else, like the audience, that this is how a young person is feeling right now. This is what they are currently going through, and they will have to do this and they will have to do that to get to where they want to be. But it's not like they've gone out of their way to like invite us into the panel to talk about how lockdown has us feeling, or how we feel like we have never been listened to, because it's just not an option. So I think, yeah, the cabinet, if that was a thing, even if it was like for each individual area, it would be a nice way to really include the youth and how they feel.
Brilliant. I know a young man who's absolutely keyed into politics, and I think he definitely want to have a conversation with you about how we can make that happen. So yeah, we've run into overtime. I know what it's like as a teacher. When the bell rings, everyone starts putting their books away and laptops, and you haven't even dismissed the class yet, but you lot have been incredible. Thank you to everyone who's remained in the chat. It's been a truly powerful session. I always come in with an open mind and an ear to listen, and it was a youth-led conversation, and I think there were so many powerful gems. So I'm going to blog about this, because I really think there were so many things you all discussed. So I just want all of you in the chat, even if you're watching this afterwards, just, you know, click it up, clap it up, give thanks to all of the young people who stepped into the square to share their opinions and views. So thank you, Christina. Thank you, Shifa. Thank you, Fawaz. Thank you, Mahi. Thank you, Famida. Thank you, Abby, for all taking part in the conversation. We've discussed young people in education and what it means to learn during lockdown. There are many people behind the scenes who've helped us make this happen. So thank you to the moderators, Anthea and Rachel. Ewan's been working on captions. Anna produced this particular session. Without Nina, the tech never works. So thank you to Nina and I call them Beard Gang. So all our tech team who've helped us out today, thank you so much. So I think that's us for tonight. Do stay with the Welcome Collection, subscribe, follow, and also I'd advise you to check out their newsletter. There will be plenty more conversations across the board on their platform until doors open once again. So my name is Alain Fusion Clapham, the Transforming Storyteller. This has been Welcome Collection. Thank you for joining us. Take care.